Hello and welcome to Around the Lens episode 43. I'm your host, David J. Murphy. We are here broadcasting live this September 27th at 8 p.m. Eastern, September 27th, 2016, one day after the first debate, first presidential debate. We might be talking about that a little bit during the show, but not extensively. We are a great show. If you've never tuned into Around the Lens before, we're a live weekly visual journalism roundtable show that airs every week, normally on Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Again, we only pushed it back one day just because, the elections. I really didn't want to take away audience from the elections, just a little birdie told me personally, asked me not to do it, Trump and Hillary both called me. Not going to name drop, though. Anyways, we're broadcasting live this Tuesday, and our show features experts in the world of photojournalism and documentary filmmaking talking about news, topics, and gear related to our career field. Our panelists this week are returning panelist Ron Hamilton and newcomer Mark Kauzlarich. Guys, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves to our audience in the order I said your names.
Ron Hamilton, returning panelist. I'm located here in Honolulu, Hawaii, and I've been a photographer for as long as I can remember. I currently work mostly for the Philippines Eagle Broadcasting Corporation, doing stories from Hawaii for Philippine television.
Nice.
And I'm Mark Kauzlarich. I am a freelance photographer based in New York City as of a few months ago, and I mostly do news coverage, although I'm sort of branching out a little bit and starting to work in the more long-form documentary world. But I spent the last year or so off and on covering the presidential campaigns. So a lot of news coverage, and now trying to settle into life in New York.
All right, guys. Great. Sorry, I had a little technical difficulty there. Mark, I'm sure you just talked about your background there a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do on a regular basis? You already explained that. I'm sorry, I missed.
No, that's okay. Yeah, a little bit, but I can say again, maybe more clearly. I mostly do daily freelance coverage in New York, features, news. But over the last year, like I said, I've been covering the presidential campaigns for a number of clients. I spent 3.5 months in Iowa, and I largely worked for Reuters out in Iowa. Spent about a little over 20 days traveling with the Bernie Sanders campaign. I spent about a week on the road traveling in the first bus tour for these presidential campaigns, which was Ted Cruz in the start of January. And so that was for Reuters, but I also work for the New York Times, Wall Street Journal. My work from the campaigns was featured by Time, Lightbox, as well as some documentary work that I've done in Ferguson was featured by Time Lightbox. So I've done a little bit of everything, but I'm trying to branch out more into the long-form storytelling as much as possible, while being conscious that doesn't pay like it used to, obviously.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if long-form storytelling you thought was sort of the way of the future, or just a more lucrative avenue to go to, but it doesn't seem like it from what you're saying.
Well, yeah, I'll say this. I don't come from a photography background originally by any means. I still feel kind of like an outsider in the photojournalism community. I come from a background studying political science and Middle East studies in undergrad. I went back to school, to grad school at the University of Missouri for my master's in journalism, to sort of educate myself in that sphere and understand how to be a better journalist. But I still kind of come from that sociological, anthropological background. And for me, long form work, you're not going to find those assignments as much as you once did, but I just know that I didn't necessarily foresee myself getting into photojournalism to do daily stories, and so I have to find a sphere that I can work in where I am satisfying myself intellectually, because I picked up the camera more as a tool than as something that I just was inherently in love with. So
Okay.
that's a little bit
Great.
more about my background.
Cool. All right. And Ron, I don't know if you heard me when before I was disconnected, but what have you been up to since the last time we had you on?
Since last time, more of the same, I suppose. Yeah. Still living in the dream here in Hawaii. Please don't take me away from this briar patch I'm in. It's horrible here, but I'm condemned.
I don't know. You said it was pretty hot the last couple days, or today.
Sure, it was. We had a bad week. It's about 91 degrees for a few days. Today it's back down to 84 again. It's good weather again.
Okay, great. All right, well, let's get on with the show. We got a lot to talk about tonight. Our first topic this week, and by the way, you can follow everything that we're talking about, all our topics. The show notes, as always, are published online at our website, aroundthelens.com. So, our first topic that we're talking about is our news of the week, as always, and it's about the new 1 terabyte memory card. SanDisk recently announced a 1 terabyte SD card. It's not available for purchase yet, darn it. Although I'll probably not buy it when it comes out because it'll be grossly overpriced. Excuse me. So 1 terabyte SD cards. We've talked about SD cards in the past, and memory cards in general. And I just want to know what you guys thought of this this latest development, and is this something that you think you'll be integrating into your workflow when it becomes available and potentially reasonable to purchase? Ron, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Yeah, 1 terabyte cards. What a great idea. I think that, of course, as we're shooting more 4K video, I think as file formats increase in size, I think it's inevitable that memory cards will also increase in size. I remember the days when digital photography was young, and we had 512 megabyte cards or 256 megabyte cards, and people thought, oh, a gigabyte card, well, I don't want to use too many of those, my gosh. I put all my pictures on there, I'll lose that, I'll lose everything. So I just see it more of the same. I think that it's inevitable that everything goes up. So will I be getting one anytime soon? No. But I can envision a day when that will be probably necessary, required.
Yeah. I remember when we got the first 1 gigabyte micro drive cards. In case you don't know, those were like little spinning hard drives inside of the compact flash format. And that was huge. That was like the big deal on the block, because now you could store like hundreds of photographs. Of course, they were very small at that time, only like a few megapixels in size, but it was still, big deal, What about you, Mark? What do you think about this card or the development?
I don't know. My first reaction is I know everybody's using SD cards now. I don't like SD cards just because I lose them. But hey, 1 terabyte to lose really easily is, great for space. I'm sure somebody, like you said, in the future there will be a reason cameras will change, or maybe I'll get into video or so on and so forth. But this is just, it's technology. It's one of the few places, though, that I think we're still seeing kind of leaps and bounds in technology. You come out with a new iPhone and people are sort of disappointed with a little bit of what the specs on the iPhone are, or the new, MacBook. The big talk is going to be, how they're using USB-C, but like that kind of tells me that in a lot of other spheres things can kind of slow down, but memory is still growing by leaps and bounds, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to organize all my photos. So the only thing that this really actually makes me think is that by the time that I get my next RAID array set up, I'll already be behind on storage space because something else will come out. But
yeah, if you're not at least rocking a petabyte hard drive by the time this comes out, you're in the you're going to be in the dust.
Well, I mean, I just talked to somebody who was trying to set up their first ever RAID system and have some redundancy with drives, and was kind of explaining the technical reasons why they should do certain things. And they had bought 6 terabyte drives, I believe, that, boggles my mind that 6 terabytes is not that different than what SanDisk is coming out with, but
yeah. Well, I mean, I just recently upgraded to 8 terabyte hard drives, and I don't have them in a RAID array. I just have 2 8 terabyte hard drives. And, of course, it's dangerous to use a hard drive that's not in a RAID array, but I'm using cloud storage to kind of offload all that stuff. And, I think, yeah, with the, this 1 terabyte card is neat with regard to, 4K video, 6K video, 8K video. I think it's definitely becoming in handy. I shoot, the GH4, and I shoot 4K video on that all the time. And I've got a 256 gigabyte memory card I load up in there, and I never, have ever gotten close to running out of space on that. And I shoot 4K video all the time, like I said. So, I mean, I usually offload the card before it ever gets anywhere near full. I think I've, at the most, had maybe 100 gigabytes of content on the card at any one given time. And I would probably use this the same way. I don't see myself ever getting close to filling the card, even though I could, because it's just...
Well, I mean, the thing that's... Oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying it's all your eggs in one basket, but go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. The lack of redundancy. And I mean, that's... Ron said that, okay, where you can lose a lot at one time. And that's always been the case. But, man, how much... I'd rather have my work split over multiple cards at that point than, just seeing how much more I can pile on and decide, all right, am I okay with losing, 500 gigs of stuff at one given time? Why not just put them on 2 different cards, and then you're doubling that? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the argument. That's the argument that was made when every single iteration, every single size increase of cards came about. Is like, well, I'm going to stick with my 16 gig cards, not these fancy 64 gigabyte cards. And, ultimately what happens is these large format cards, large capacity cards come down in price to the point where it's just so affordable to buy one. I mean, you can get a 256 gigabyte card, I think, for about $100 now. So eventually this is going to be something that, is $100, $200 or whatever, and it's just going to be cheap enough to where, you can get one. And again, as long as you are offloading your stuff after every shoot, you should be fine. But, it's nice to have that, I guess, that capacity to play around with so you can shoot for an extended period of time. I've always adopted to the larger size cards whenever they came out. I don't have that same sort of fear of losing my stuff. I'm pretty confident in technology nowadays. I think, the days when, you could lose a compact flash card or something in terms of losing the data on it relatively easily are hopefully behind us. Hopefully the technology has gotten better. So I trust technology. Maybe that's going to bite me in the butt in the end, but I do also have some backup software solutions. I know, Ron, you were telling me about a backup solution you had to use or a friend of yours used.
Yeah, that's right. This weekend I had a catastrophic card failure. I was shooting at the park there, at the beach park. It's the only time I get to go to the beach in Hawaii is when I'm working. And
you're in Hawaii. You're always at the beach.
I know. Hawaii, you think? Yeah, right. Anyway, I came home with my disc of pictures there, my CF card of pictures, and wouldn't read. My computer wouldn't read it. Put it back in the camera wouldn't boot.
Uh-oh.
And I had to use my pick of the week to save the day.
All right, don't spoil it.
Okay, I won't say it. I won't say it.
It's recovery software, but we'll wait till the end to tell you what it is.
Let's see what it is. That's right.
We gotta keep you guessing. Keep you listening till the end.
I won't say who it is. It's a rare one.
All right, great. Yeah, when I saw it, I never saw that kind of before. So, Mark, you said you don't shoot with the SD cards, so I'm guessing you stick with the CF cards. If we get a 1 terabyte CF card, will that entice you at all to upgrade, or is that still?
Hopefully, that'll drive down the price of CF cards.
Right.
I mean, that's the CF cards are much more expensive. Well, I don't know. In my mind, much more expensive than the SD cards for the size, and I think by factor the cameras that I'm using more and more, and the fact that I'm probably not going to be using my old Nikon D3s with their dual CF card slots anymore, then I'm sure I'll change. But man, the number of times where something's happened to a CF card, or it's got kicked off a table and stomped on, or fallen into a bag and I've been able to find it just because it's bigger than an SD card. I've lost probably a handful of SD cards, but I don't think I've lost more than maybe 1 or 2 CF cards. So yeah, I mean, for size, sure, I have a Nikon D810, so of course I'm always worried about size of cards, but you know, like anything, that's just should, in theory, drive down the price of the next thing.
Yeah.
As new technology comes out.
Sure. Yeah. For the longest time, I never really gave CF card or SD cards any credence because, you know, I used the Canon 5D Mark II, and that shot on CF, and you know, I just always had a card reader with me to plug into my computer. It was just what I was used to. Mm-hmm. And then I got a MacBook Pro, which had a built-in SD card reader, and actually all my computers now have SD card readers built in. And then I got a camera that only shoots or records to SD cards, so then I had to get SD cards for that or use the ones I had. And once I started using that as my primary camera, I was like, SD all the way, because it's the workflow. You know, I can shoot something on my camera, pop out the card, throw it into the computer, and they don't make computers with CF card readers anymore.
No.
I used to have, or I still do have, a PC with one of those slots that you can stick the. They used to make it where you could stick a card, a PCMCIA card, right, where you could stick the whole CF into the device, and it was nice, you know, nice and convenient. But I think I always used to default to the card reader, but having the SD card, you know, reader built into the device is just, you know, for my workflow, it's what's easiest for me.
Yeah, I never liked SD cards for a long time either. I thought CF was the professional standard. Yeah. SD card was for amateurs. But I've completely, well, I'm going to say reverse, but I've certainly, I use both. I have one camera that takes CF, one takes SD. I use both.
Yeah.
Well, it's all you can also, I mean, my understanding is you can run a card through a washing machine. Right. CF holds up a lot better than SD does.
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't wash my cards in my washing machine. I hand wash my cards.
Yeah.
So that takes,
Woolite.
yeah. Just do it in the sink, you know. Just I have a little thing, and I, you know, put up the dry. That's how I wash my memory cards. Because you gotta clean them every once in a while. That's how you get all the formatted bits off. Don't nobody do that. That was a joke. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna get freaking emails. I know about it. Okay. I will say though, once this 1 terabyte card comes into the micro SD format, I will put it into my cell phone. Just saying.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about our next topic, which is, protest photography. We've talked about protest photography in the past, obviously, because we've had guests on who've been in protests and have documented protests. But, you know, I was watching the recent Charlotte protest turn into what looked like a riot, and it kind of made me think about what I would do as a photographer if I was in this situation, you know, where protests just goes crazy and there's things going off all around you, bombs going off, fireworks going off, bullets being shot everywhere. You know, how do you react as a photographer, videographer, journalist in this sort of an environment? Well, what does your sort of instinct tell you to do? You know, I can speak to a little bit of my military background. I know you can too, probably, Ron. But Mark, what do you think about, you know, again, these type of situations specifically or in general? And kind of what you think about, you know, how we as visual journalists do our job in this kind of environment.
I mean, I think the first thing that pops to mind is that nobody really knows until they're in it. And I don't feel confident saying that I have, you know, enough experience to say that you run right in there or whatever. I was out in Ferguson, both in August when right after Michael Brown was killed, and then in November when the indictment didn't come down. And I specifically did my best to avoid the situations like that. I was working for Reuters, and so my assignment was specifically to cover daytime stuff, while the rest of the coverage team could, after spending their night out, being tear gas, so on and so forth. It was left open-ended for me to make my own decision about if I really felt strongly about going out into the tear gas that night. In general, I was just super tired. so I didn't go out. But the other thing was I found that the things that were going on away from the protests, riots, were much more interesting to me intellectually. So I can't say, how you react. I will say, in these situations, you find situation where things could change rapidly. You find yourself over time becoming more aware of what's going on around you, and I think that's the number one most important thing in any of these situations, whether it's a protest, whether it's a riot, you're dealing with police, you're in a place where you don't necessarily know your surroundings or the people that you're around quite as well. You just have to be very aware of the people that you're around. The general rule is to never be alone, which I know got some people robbed, had people ended up with guns to their head in Ferguson, and they were robbed of their camera equipment because they ended up alone. But you sort of develop your own personal sense and gauge of what you are comfortable with doing. And I've read, and even recently, people talking about situations where they were uncomfortable and they said to their team, or they didn't say to their team, and somebody in their team noticed they were uncomfortable, that's how they felt. And pretty shortly after, everybody said, okay, well, one person here is not okay with this, so we can't be here. You stick together and you get out if you don't feel comfortable. But the other thing that I did notice working in these situations is I sort of have developed a feel for when the people that I'm around might be dangerous, might have guns, and you've got to go with your gut instincts in that regard, because those are the things that are going to keep you safe. And if you are hurt or killed, you're no use to anybody as a journalist. So don't put yourself in those situations. I mean, beyond that, I don't know what to say, but I think that's the best thing, is don't worry about feeling like you have to be a tough guy or proving yourself. Trust your gut, and if your gut says something's not right, it's because either you're maybe going to put yourself in a situation that's too dangerous, or you're already in a situation that's too dangerous and you shouldn't be there. Leave it to somebody else. I mean, the people that I was working with had covered Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan. They've been in these situations. There was no reason for me to try to go out at night just because I wanted to. I was there to cover them during the day.
Okay. Ron, any thoughts from you?
Protests in Hawaii, my gosh. Not very often, I'll tell you that. We have...
I can't imagine what you would even protest in Hawaii.
No,
it's too nice. It's too nice. It's
too nice. We have homeless people protesting the cost of living, cost of apartment hunting, whatever, rentals here, too high. We have people protesting the regular stuff, gay marriage on one side of the street, no gay marriage on the other, marijuana legalization on one side, keep marijuana legal on the other side. Now, but the protests here, they don't get violent, or not typically. Every now and then, you'll see some Hawaiian sovereignty movements going on, where you have the indigenous Hawaiians believe, rightfully so, that the land was stolen. And from the mainland, I'm sure you hear the same thing from the American Indians. My land was stolen, and it's absolutely true. You can't dispute it. And, well, there are still Hawaiians here who want it back. So every now and then there's protests like that. Statehood Day, when Hawaii Statehood Day celebrates, they have their own celebration here, and they protest. And then I accidentally walked through a anti-Howley rally at the Capitol one time back when I was in the Marine Corps, but we just quickly exited the area once we realized where we were.
Anti-what rally?
Anti-Howley rally, white people. It's a pigeon, H-A-L-O-E.
Oh, okay, it's a Hawaiian thing, got it.
Hawaiian, Howley, yeah. White people. Me and my friend, we walked, they told us, okay, watch out, guys, don't stay around this part of town, and we were walking and talking about how much fun it was, and next thing we realized that things were a little bit different. Oh my gosh, we're in the middle of an anti-Howley rally. Get out.
You should join them, be like, yeah, down with these Howleys.
Yeah, right. And we were in the military, so you gotta watch what you do in the military.
Yeah.
But protests, I've covered them, but they're pretty peaceful. They hold their signs and wave them. I've never had a problem. And when I think about Ferguson or things like that. What would I do? I always, you put yourself in that, what if it happens? What would I do? And I think that, as with most things, when I have my camera, that's my barrier between me and the world.
Yeah.
So I would think, like when I cover anything else, I think it would just be a barrier for me, a shield for me, that I probably wouldn't be as attentive as I probably should be. I'd probably feel a lot safer since I'm taking pictures. I'm watching it through a viewfinder rather than in real life. I think I'd put myself at more risk. And probably that's what happened to those photographers that did get in trouble. They probably thought it was a shield, which it isn't. And they probably got themselves in the same trouble that I would have got myself into.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've never been in a situation that went awry. I've been in protest situations. I've documented protest situations, but they were all peaceful. And the groups, they sometimes have either high regard or animosity towards anyone with a camera, especially if they're not on their side. You can't really play both sides of a protest. I learned that doing a story about both anti-war and pro-war, or I say, I don't know if I want to call them pro-war, but pro-support of the war, and then anti-war protesters. They were doing their protests on opposite sides of a street, and so I was bouncing back and forth, trying to document both sides because I was trying to be, impartial in regard to my story, but you try and explain that to one side or the other, and neither side believes you. So they both ostracize you. Although the one group did sort of warm up to me, but it was still at the cost of getting accepted by the other group. But thankfully, none of that ever devolved into shooting or violence or anything. It was just irritating because it made my job more difficult. But if I was in the Charlotte situation, I think, like you said, Ron, I probably would be a bit too, I would probably not be thinking like, I need to get out of here and be safe. I'd be thinking, oh my God, cool action is going on. I want to document this. And then maybe getting myself into trouble because I wasn't paying attention, or just, getting mixed up in a group that was doing something bad because I'm now with that group documenting them. I probably might not think of my own safety, or, in the moment, maybe after the fact, I think like, wow, that was stupid. I could have got myself killed. But in the moment, you want to do your job, you want to catch the action. And, it's not a situation I envy anyone being in.
I would
we
say,
just had go ahead, sorry.
No, I was gonna go off on a little bit of a tangent in terms of like evaluating why you're there. I don't know if your comment was more related to what David had said. So feel free. Otherwise,
No, go ahead. Sorry, no, please. You've got the experience on the violence.
Well, so after the shooting that happened in Charlotte during the protests, there Brian Blanco posted on Facebook urging students not to go to Charlotte to photograph, and that really resonated with me in a really strange way. I was a student when I was covering Ferguson. I was a student, but I was covering Ferguson on assignment. I wasn't covering Ferguson on assignment for an outlet that sort of is a spec agency. I was covering it for Reuters, and was given specific instructions and sort of how to keep myself safe. And I came up with an idea. I wanted to go into the neighborhoods and talk to people and see what life was actually like. And I was told no. That right now going into the neighborhoods is probably less safe than Afghanistan, when some people that I knew were in Afghanistan. And they said, no, I wouldn't do that. And I was in Afghanistan. And I thought, oh, man, okay. It's good to have those people there guiding you and looking out for you and telling you things like when we went back out the second time to write the phone number for your editor and potentially a lawyer on a part of your body where it wouldn't be seen by the police, so that if the police saw that you had a phone number written there, they might target you thinking you were up to no good. But at least if you were arrested or somebody found you, they had somebody to call. Things like that. But so I thought about what Brian had said about students don't go out, and ultimately there were people that said, well, how dare somebody assume the motivations of students? Because part of his post was, I know that it's tempting to go out and make one of these hard news photos in these volatile situations and put that out there. And editors had also said, yeah, I don't want to see crappy photos from a dangerous situation showing that you put yourself in a dangerous situation to make a crappy photo.
Right.
If
you're going to put yourself in a dangerous situation, you better make sure that photo is awesome.
Yeah, and I had discouraged some friends from going to Baltimore, and a friend got in a bad situation in Baltimore. A window got shattered in her car, and I thought, is it important for you to be there? Probably not. Is it safe for you to be there? Probably not. I get the don't judge people based on motivations that you don't know, but I do think it's worth saying, like, it's not worth your safety to try to make one of these photos. Like I said, that's probably not going to be that good. And so the best thing you can do is step back and look at your motivations for these things. Look at what you're trying to say with your photography. And if, some people, our job is to cover news, and there's going to be a lot of us there, and some of us are going to end up taking the same photo a lot of the time, and that's how it goes. That's how it was on the campaign as well. We're covering the Trump campaign, and there's a lot of that. But on the other side, if you have something that you want to say specifically, and you think that you're the only person that can say it, and there's a way that you can do it safely, that's when you start going through the motions of figuring out, okay, how can I do that? But I really appreciated that Brian put that out there, and I was kind of disappointed that people were finger pointing at him saying, like, how dare you assume people's motivations? Okay, so you judge your own motivations and make that decision. But yes, students, I think, more and more think, okay, the protests that happened in LA regarding Michael Brown, Baltimore, Charlotte, Ferguson, let's all run out there. And being that I was in a school 2 hours away from that in Ferguson, I saw the discussions that were going on in a school. It's dangerous. You probably shouldn't be out there. And I was out there because of extenuating circumstances, but I wouldn't encourage anybody else to just say, okay, one person did it, so I'm going to go do it too.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, especially if that's your assignment, or if you're trying to make a name for yourself, or if you're a freelancer and you're trying to get captivating imagery that is going to sell. You might put yourself in dangerous situations for that very reason. Were you ever any, besides the protest, Ron, were ever any dangerous situations in the Marine Corps? Besides every day?
Not really. My job was more in the safety zone. I never had to do anything dangerous, really.
Nice. Yeah, when I was in Fallujah, I was never in a situation where I was taking fire directly from someone shooting a gun at me. I was lucky in that regard. I did cover some protests when I was in Puerto Rico for a while. They were protesting the use of Vieques, the island off the coast of Puerto Rico that was for a time, a Navy target zone for Dud missiles. And so they were protesting, but they was only protesting outside the gates. So I was in the safety inside, and they were outside.
We had some problem in Okinawa. There was a problem where some Navy guys had raped a Japanese schoolgirl, and there were protesters outside the gates, and they just kept us all on base. We just weren't allowed out.
Yeah, that's still happening today, unfortunately. All right, well, let's go on, move to our next topic this evening. We're talking about gear. Our Gear of the Week segment is all about the GoPro Karma drone. Now, if you've been paying attention...
Is it all about that? With the new announcement, is it all about that GoPro Karma?
We'll talk about it in a second. I don't want to show my cards too early, because I only just heard about this other drone. So let's start with this, and then we'll move on, and we'll compare and contrast, because obviously when I saw the GoPro Karma drone announcement, I looked at this and I was like, you know what? That's the drone for me. I've been sort of on the fence, the drone fence, if you will, for a while. I think that they are really interesting, captivating devices. I just never kind of thought about what would be the use case scenario for me. And then I started watching a podcast, or I'm sorry, a vlog by Casey Neistat. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he does a daily vlog and he uses drone footage in almost every single vlog that he does. And so I thought to myself, that's an interesting use for drones. And again, they were sort of on the cusp of being something I wanted, but they were always out of the price range of feasibility. You know, I didn't see myself getting any return on investment for them. But anyways, the GoPro announced the Karma drone, which is a pretty nifty looking device. It comes in a backpack. It has a gimbal attachment thing. You can just, you know, I'll finally have an excuse to use my GoPro Hero 4 Black again if I get this drone. So I am thinking about this as a possible purchase. What do you guys think of this drone and drones in general?
Well, you mentioned Casey Neistat, and I agree. The man is the best argument both for and against owning a drone that you could pick. He flies.
I'm always amazed where he is allowed to fly that drone.
Yeah, well, I think he just doesn't care. I think he just flies where he feels like. If he gets in trouble, oops, sorry. And he's one of those, you know, ask for forgiveness rather than for permission kind of people. But he crashes one every other episode. So, I mean, they're great footage, but my God. Yeah, right. How many thousands of dollars of broken drones does he have hanging on his wall?
The last time I saw it, when he talked about it, it was like 8 drones.
Right. So, yeah, it's like, wow, that sure looks great. I sure don't have enough money to support that.
No.
So, no, I'm going to pass this one up. It sure would be nice for covering some events, I must admit. It sure would be a nice thing to have. If the TV station would buy one, but then I'd crash, I'd owe them money, it wouldn't work out. I don't think I'd touch it. I think.
Well, I mean, is there a price point that would promote you or encourage you to buy one?
Good point. Good point. I guess if like my action camera, if I could get one for a couple $100, a drone for a couple $100, I guess that'd make it worth my while. I guess you're right. Someday that could be.
It's getting there. I mean, it's not too far off. I mean, you can buy lower quality drones for about $500 or less. Some of the old DJI Phantoms. So, Mark, how about you?
You know, I said earlier before the show that I wasn't completely sure what I would do with it. But that being said, I do find drones interesting. I mean, I think anything that gives you an opportunity to do something different, whether it's alternative processes in photography or sort of turning the photographic industry on its head. Check out Dominic Bracco's work or Annie Flanagan. Both have done things where they've mixed mediums. And so, you know, all it is another tool. If you can find a place that it fits in whatever you're doing, then fantastic. And if it's the thing, if this is the specific drone that gets you to do that, even better. For me, the concerns, number one, are not having any ideas of where I'd actually want to use the drone. Second is what Ron said, is I'm afraid that I'd break it. I mean, I look at these things, especially looking at the DJI Phantoms, like they look like too, and you hold them and they're light and they're plastic, and they just look like the kind of plastic that you would get with a toy that from McDonald's that would break easily, you know. And you've got these legs that are supporting it when it lands, and yes, it's light, but it's not going to take a fall from any height, or particularly replaceable. So, I mean, these are all things that concern me as a person who, despite not working in a ton of hard news situations, works in situations where I know I put my gear through hell, get bumped by other people.
Yeah.
So, ostensibly, if I'm using a drone, I'm using it in a similar situation where it might run into something or fall or get knocked over by... I think I saw a video recently of a drone being taken out by a falcon or an eagle.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, that was a falcon or eagle that was trying
to
take out drones.
Okay,
well, here's the other one. What if you crash your drone into a person? What if you hurt somebody with it?
I mean, liability insurance, but you don't want to be the first person that gets, you know, dollars because your drone fell on somebody.
Yeah.
I'll let somebody else take that. So I don't know. It's great, and again, it's bringing technology prices down, bringing something to somebody that will want to use it in a way that I'm sure they're much more intelligent than I am and can come up with a cool way to use this product. And yeah, it's tempting. Like I'm a freelancer, so I've got cash that I have to dump into something at the end of the year, or the IRS takes it. So who knows? If I come up with an idea that I would want to use a drone for, and especially a drone that stores small because I have a tiny apartment in New York, then sure, maybe.
I mean, that's the biggest selling point for me is the foldability of the drone. And, you know, I also like it, despite the drone, the gimbal, the portable gimbal that you can just take off the drone and stick onto I forget what they call it, but the little, handheld device. I think that's a pretty neat capability. You know, I think you were mentioning it too, talking about that, Ron, in terms of gimbals and 3-axis gimbals and stuff.
Right.
I actually have a 3-axis gimbal for my GoPro. I just don't use it ever. So, but I like the fact that the drone is versatile enough to have that capability. So if you do want to use it, it's right there. And of course, like you said, Mark, we could be getting drones in our Happy Meals in the future. So, I just wait till McDonald's comes out.
The the military has those little small drones that you can even throw. They're like hummingbirds, and you can throw them. I mean, this is all technology that trickles down. The question to me still is whether there's a point. And I did finally looked up the essay.
Sorry, Mark, we lose you? Yeah, it happens. Hopefully Mark will come back on. Anyways, so we did also want to mention briefly about the other drone that was announced, I think, in response to this one. It's from DJI, and let me pull it up here so I don't mess up the name. I think it's called the Mavic, and it's actually a pretty cool looking device. It seems to be smaller than the Karma. It looks like they're going for the fitting in your pants pocket market for drones. So this is actually a pretty exciting entry, although they're looking at, might be costing around $1,000, so a little bit more expensive, but it does have the camera on it. What do you guys think of this drone? The Mavic Pro from DJI.
It looks beautiful. Looks like, of course, product photography being what it is, everything looks great on the advertising.
Yeah.
I know it looks nice. Once again, any drone, if we're talking about a nice price point like what you mentioned, that would be what it would take for me. But you're right. All of the
check out the
drone companies.
Verge. They have a first look at the Mavic.
Yeah, I took a look there at the website there. The different drone companies coming into it's got to do nothing but increase the availability of alternatives to DJI, and the more alternatives you have, the lower the price, the better the technology. So sure, great idea. I wish more people would make drones.
Am I back?
Hey, back. Hey,
see you, Mark.
Hey, sorry. Just wanted to make sure.
You're back. What do you like about the Mavic? Talk to us about the DJI Mavic, which looks like it's a total response to the Karma.
Yeah, I mean, boy, if it's a response, kudos on them for being fast.
Well, I'm sure it was a development, but
No, I know. I don't know. I was looking at it earlier, and looking on my phone, it looked like, hey, it might actually be created out of parts that are replaceable or more substantial. It also looks like it folds smaller, which, I like the idea that the GoPro folds into a small-ish package, but this apparently folds in on itself much better. Mm-hmm. Part of that is because they don't have the removable gimbal, but they're not, targeting people the same way that GoPro is. But if it fixes some of these concerns that I have about how well this holds up to use over time, even cooler. I'm waiting. Ideally, it would be something like this made out of the parts that they make their Inspire drones out of, which are actually carbon fiber and stuff like that. But I'm sure this is the first step in that direction.
Yeah, no, it's an intriguing piece of gear, and if the price is right, or if the price is competitive to the Karma, then I might consider getting this as my first drone. I don't know yet. They haven't even announced a release date or a price yet, so it'd be difficult to kind of plan around this. And I might go with the GoPro drone first, just to kind of see how it goes and sort of get my feet wet. I mean, GoPro is a company that I trust. I buy their gear, so like I said, I already got the camera for it, so I might just go with that. But we'll see.
That's the other thing too. Is you have to understand that the market that they're targeting is to some small degree different. I mean, GoPro is creating something that's integrated into systems that they already have. Built. Every time you buy one of these DJI products, for the most part, you're buying something completely new. So I think that will be the thing to look at too, is maybe even looking specifically at the camera.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I haven't picked up a GoPro because I have no interest really in that like fisheye-ish shot that you get that's sort of synonymous with GoPro now.
Sure.
So maybe that's the place to look at the differences between these two if you're looking for a first drone.
Yeah.
Well, they have software to correct that too, so you don't have to have the wide angle. They have software that'll crop it down to something more pleasant.
And you can shoot in camera. You can shoot to a
Right.
medium or less wide. I would say focal length. But yeah, Ron, you should get a drone like immediately. You're in Hawaii. You have no excuse not to get a drone and be shooting.
Well, you can't fly within 3 miles of an airport, but everywhere in Hawaii is within 3 miles of an airport. It's a
Just
small
fly.
island.
Don't worry about the rules.
No, I was at the park this weekend shooting those people, and there was drones flying. So
Mhm.
no, they're around.
Yeah.
I bet they're getting great footage of the ocean. I'm sure they were.
Heck yeah. All right, well, let's close it off tonight with our picks of the week. Mark, why don't you go first?
All right, my pick, this was just off the top of my head right before the start of the program. I got an email and photo from a tintype that I had. Oh, come on.
Mark. Let's go to Ron. Ron, do your pick of the week, maybe.
Okay, how do you read? Am I coming through clear?
You
guys have robot voices. Okay, you guys had robot voices. Okay. No, my pick of the week, because I had a catastrophic card failure, so I used my favorite photo recovery software, which is available for Linux, my preferred operating system, as well as Macintosh, Windows, and FreeBSD, Sun Solaris, Mac OS X, blah, blah, blah. And it'll be in the show notes. My program I use is called PhotoRec, Photo Recovery Software, and that's open source under the GNU public license, and anybody can use it, modify it for their own use without paying royalties. It's free to download, free to use, free to distribute.
Awesome. Thanks, Ron.
As should be most software.
Yeah, right. Mark?
And am I back? Hopefully I'm back.
You're back, buddy.
All right, cool. Sorry, it's the New York internet. It's just terrible sometimes. So my pick of the week is the Penumbra Foundation. Also, I'm not sure exactly if it's by that name, Penumbra Foundation. They're also known as the Center for Alternative Photography. A couple of times since I moved to New York, I've gotten to meet Jeffrey Berliner, who, from my understanding, runs the foundation. But it's place where you can go in the city and learn about alternative processes for photography, old cameras, old lenses. It's all practical applications of how to keep the history of photography alive. So it's like a working museum in a way. But they were at the Photoville Festival in New York this past weekend, where a lot of people came through, and a lot of those people got tintypes done. The show, Jeffrey had sent me a scan of my tintype. I have the actual tintype here. You paid them some money. I paid some money to get my tintype done. But I think there are people out there that are doing tintypes, and that's awesome. They've been used. Esquire commissioned some for Sundance Film Festival, but I think the cool thing here is this is a whole foundation that's keeping crafts like that alive, and really worth checking out.
Okay, great. Thank you. My pick this week is going to be a video by Casey Neistat, one that's actually blowing up on his website. Yaron, you probably know what I'm talking about. He went on a flight, first-class flight via Emirates Air, and it was a seat that cost $21,000 one way, and it's going to be probably his most popular video on his website in his history of his channel, exceeding 20 million, if not already, then probably by the time we post this. So I'm going to promote that video. I think it's a pretty neat video in and of itself, and it'll give you a good idea who Casey Neistat's all about if you're interested in following his channel and subscribing, which I highly recommend. So that's pretty much my pick. Guys, where can people learn more about you? Mark?
Ron, go first. You're the more
Okay,
senior
sure.
here.
All right. Why not? My photographs are available on my Instagram channel, Ron Photo Hawaii. Not only photos of Hawaii, but that username was what I picked. So Ron Photo Hawaii. Wherever I live, it'll always be Ron Photo Hawaii.
Yeah, you know you're screwed if you move out of Hawaii, right, Ron?
I know. Well, I didn't think I was going to use Instagram for anything. I didn't know it was important.
Okay.
The other thing is you can watch my news stories on television if you're listening to this from the Philippines or watching us from the Philippines. You can watch me on Eagle News on Net 25. I'm the white guy.
All right, great.
Okay.
Mark?
You can find, well, let's start with Instagram. My Instagram is just my name, Mark Kauzlarich. That won't help you unless you have something to look at to tell you how to spell it. But you can find that on the Around the Lens website, my name. So Instagram is there. My website is also my name, so that doesn't help much either. But www.markkauzlarich.com.
Just like it's spelled. Standard spelling.
Yep, standard spelling.
Everyday standard spelling of Kauzlarich.
And my favorite thing as a journalist is when you walk up to somebody named John and they say, yeah, it's spelled standard spelling. And then you find out that the H and the N are switched or something like that. So, yeah, have fun with figuring out my name. MarkKauzlarich.com, and that's about it. Send me an email. I actually do really like getting emails from people. Sometimes I get emails about projects that I've worked on, specifically stuff that I'm working on in my neighborhood in Bushwick or in Ferguson that really elicits strong responses on one side or the other, and I really like having discussions with people. So send me an email if you want to talk about anything.
Awesome. Thank you. We will hopefully do that. People email Mark if you can figure out how to spell his name. Google autocorrect might help you. All right. You can find me personally at djmphoto.com or anything at djmphoto related. But as always, please come out to aroundthelens.com. Learn about what we do, see past episodes, connect with us through Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Patreon if you want to give us money. But you'd be the first. If anyone is the first person to give us money, I will personally go to your house, knock on your door, and say thank you and shake your hand. I probably won't do that, but I will say thank you. Anyways, that's been our show for this week. I want to thank our guests, Mark Kauzlarich and Ron Hamilton, for coming on the show. I am David J. Murphy. This has been Around the Lens, episode 43, and we're out.